Now, World News Tonight is next.
From ABC, this is a special one-hour edition of World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. The Iraqis widened the war today. For the third time, they fired missiles at Israel, and according to the U.S. military, they blew up oil installations in Kuwait. For the Israelis, it was a brutal shock. With the U.S. Patriot interceptor missile in place, many Israelis had just begun to breathe a little easier. The Patriots have been performing well in Saudi Arabia, but apparently not in Israel today. At least one Scud missile was fired at Tel Aviv, and the Israeli army spokesman says the Patriots didn't work. At least 3 people are dead, more than 60 are injured. In Israel, ABC's John Donovan.
It was the first time since Saturday the sirens warned that Iraqi missiles were on their way. It was the first time Patriot missiles were launched in Israel's defense. But at least one Iraqi missile, a Soviet-made Scud, got through. A residential neighborhood, a direct hit on an apartment house. At least 20 other buildings damaged. Most casualties were civilians. Tonight, rescuers needed heavy machines to pry apart the wreckage for people still trapped inside their homes. Some rescuers used their hands. Among those taken to the hospital, some underwent immediate surgery. Others were luckier.
My child was under the wall. The wall just fell on her. She's just alive. It's a miracle that she's alive right now.
Despite the attacks on Tel Aviv and other cities here, the Israelis have yet to retaliate. Tonight, they said,
Israel is going to choose the time and the place with which to respond. But I can assure you that this indicates what we're up against. This is a savage enemy.
After tonight's attack, Israel's government may find it difficult to wait much longer, despite U.S. pressure to show restraint, despite the sympathy Israel is winning in the West as it takes these casualties.
It has been said many times now, these Iraqi attacks on Israel, which Saddam Hussein promised before the war began, are a deliberate provocation designed in turn to provoke other Arab states to divert their attention from Kuwait to a broader conflict with their historic enemy, Israel. It is the fear of a much wider conflagration which has the president leaning so hard on the Israelis. In Washington, ABC's John McCarthy.
It was 5 days ago that Israel was first attacked by Iraq Scud missiles. Although Israeli warplanes were immediately scrambled, Israel did not retaliate. Secretary Baker was on the phone to Prime Minister Shamir minutes after the strike, arguing for restraint. Within hours of that first attack, the U.S. decided to send Israel several batteries of Patriot air defense missiles, along with American crews to operate them. The missiles arrived over the weekend, along with Lawrence Eagleburger, number 2 man at the State Department, and Paul Wolfowitz, Assistant Secretary of Defense. Their job was to calm jittery nerves in Jerusalem, trying to convince Prime Minister Shamir and his advisors that even if Israel did retaliate, Israeli jets could accomplish no more than American warplanes were already doing in trying to knock out Iraq's Scud missiles. It was also pointed out if Israel retaliated, it could weaken Arab participation in the coalition against Iraq, and if Israeli warplanes flew over Jordanian territory to reach Iraq, Israel might face a war with Jordan. But perhaps the most convincing argument for restraint was that it would deny Saddam Hussein one of his primary goals, drawing Israel into the fight. Tonight, Israel's ambassador to Washington said the missile strikes have no military value, but are aimed strictly at inflicting psychological terror. He seemed to say Israel would not retaliate for this one.
It's not the matter of an eye for an eye, it's the matter of how to act in the best way in order to defend our population and in order to prevent further attacks in the future.
American officials point out that Israel still reserves the right to retaliate, but the calculation is as long as Iraq fails to do massive damage to Israel, and as long as the U.S. continues its enormous campaign to destroy the Scud missiles in Iraq, for the moment, Israel appears willing not to retaliate. Peter?
John, it certainly seems out of keeping with the day, but do you detect anything anywhere on the horizon that suggests a diplomatic effort to get this war stopped?
Peter, there is certainly a lot of talk on the horizon and at the periphery, but there is nothing at the center. There is nothing to indicate that the United States or Iraq are interested in slowing the fighting at all. There is no interest in a ceasefire from either of the two primary powers that are engaged in this fight.
Okay, John McCarthy of the State Department, thank you. At the White House today, two major concerns: how to convince Israel not to strike back, and how to convince Jordan, which is sandwiched in between Israel and Iraq, not to take sides if Israel does anything. At the White House, here's ABC's Britt Hume.
The Bush High Command rolled into the White House soon after the new Scud attack on Israel. Secretary of State Baker, looking worried, joined a meeting previously scheduled by the president with Defense Secretary Cheney. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Powell came too. Powell and the other generals may have been given the job of fighting this war, but the task of keeping it from spreading is more diplomatic than military. Late today, that Oval Office meeting produced a White House statement saying the president had gotten a briefing on the war, but also labeling the new Scud attack on Tel Aviv, quote, unprovoked, a brutal act of terror. The statement praised Israel's, quote, remarkable restraint. Earlier, the president had quietly opened another front in the campaign to contain the war by dispatching this man, State Department emissary Richard Armitage, to Jordan, where support for Saddam Hussein is high. Mr. Bush had appealed last Friday to Jordan's King Hussein for cooperation. But the next day, the king held a news conference and repeated his threat to shoot down Israeli planes if they invaded Jordan's airspace in retaliating against Iraq for Scud attacks. But when asked about incursions by Iraqi Scud missiles bound for Israel, he said he didn't know about that. Mr. Bush at Camp David over the weekend promptly sent Armitage to tell the king to stay out of the war.
According to sources here, the Armitage message to King Hussein was blunt. As one official described it, this war is going to be over someday and we're going to win, so you don't want to get involved. Peter?
But I wonder if at the White House today there's any sign, with the weather clearing up now, which we'll talk about a little in a minute, there's any change in the thought about strategy at the White House?
Well, Peter, I don't know if there's any change in the thought about strategy. I know there's no consideration being given to doing anything other than prosecuting this war, and I do know, because I just learned this a short time ago, that the president this afternoon in that meeting, which I just described, received a much more extensive briefing on bomb damage than anyone has been given, at least publicly to date. And one of his people promised me just a few minutes ago that some of that information, at least, would be made available to the public tomorrow.
Okay, Britt Hume at the White House. Thank you. In Turkey this morning, a Patriot missile was launched by mistake. It happened at Incirlik, the huge NATO base in southeastern Turkey, which is now being used to launch airstrikes at Iraq. As U.S. planes were coming in, a Patriot suddenly took off. U.S. officials say nothing was hit. Someone pushed a button, and the Patriot self-destructed. In a moment, we'll look at the details of the air war, which intensifies as the weather clears. Then we'll gauge the capabilities of Iraq's elite Republican Guard and report on those fires burning in the Kuwaiti oil fields.
You know what I like best about going on vacation? Eating out. So on this vacation, I'm dining my way from San Juan to St. Thomas, from Guadalupe to Caracas, from Cozumel to Grand Cayman. It's all included in the price. But what I really like about this vacation is that my favorite restaurant goes everywhere I go. Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Flu outbreak in 29 states. Coughing, congestion, body aches, fever, headache. And it's spreading fast. What can you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What can you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
For the third night in a row, Iraqi missiles were fired at Saudi Arabia, as on past nights at the huge airbase in the eastern part of the country, from which so many combat missions against Iraq are launched. ABC's Bill Rediker is still there.
After nearly 3 days, the clouds lifted above central and western Iraq today, and Allied pilots stepped up their bombing campaign. During the past 24 hours, they returned to flying nearly 2,000 sorties. Since the war began 6 days ago, more than 10,000. Clear weather means it is easier for pilots to see and avoid anti-aircraft fire. But military briefing officers say pilots are running into a lot of resistance and displayed this videotape taken from a bombing run to show the extent of anti-aircraft fire. Look for the white dots that sparkle.
It's falling away behind us.
The range of those flashes gives you an idea of the intensity of the air defense around that particular target.
Impact point is steady. Okay, nice and easy on the turn. Stand by for designate.
Iraq's anti-aircraft threat is always on the minds of pilots. But the recent propaganda broadcast by Iraq of American POWs has heightened concern. Today, 2 more U.S. pilots were shown on Baghdad TV. Air Force Major Jeffrey Scott Tice and Air Force Captain Harry Michael Roberts.
Captain Harry Michael Roberts, USA.
Those who fly the low-altitude A-10 tank killers say they are outraged about the treatment of the POWs and vow it strengthens their resolve.
I didn't expect anything less out of that monster. It has galvanized, I believe, the entire fighter pilot world.
Well, we were all sitting around the TV watching it this morning when it came on, and of course we were immediately silent, and we all put ourselves into their shoes because it could be us.
If I am captured, I will continue to resist by all means available.
For months, military planners have tried to prepare soldiers and pilots by broadcasting code of conduct reminders on television and radio here, telling them what to expect and how to deal with one of the most difficult consequences of war. The intense bombardment of Iraq and Kuwait has not eliminated one of the military's top targets, mobile Scud launchers. Once again today, Iraq launched a barrage of Scud missiles. This intercept by a Patriot missile near Dhahran occurred only a few hours ago. U.S. Army experts examined the debris for chemical residue and found nothing.
All clear. All clear? Yeah. All clear?
But officials say they don't know what this is. The canister, which looks like a missile fuel tank, fell in the middle of a residential neighborhood in Riyadh. No injuries or damage were reported.
Your baggage will be checked for your safety and the safety of everybody else in this line.
Although the Patriot defense missiles have had great success against the Scuds, the Iraqi missiles have been effective as a terror weapon. Some American employees of the Saudi oil company, Aramco, are packing up and moving out.
After the night before last, and it looked like that Dhahran might be what he was aiming for, and we just decided I couldn't justify keeping my family here.
Scud alerts are also keeping troops awake at night, but American Marines on the Kuwaiti border say the missiles are more of a nuisance than a threat.
I think it's important that people realize that the Scud really is not a threat unless it happens to land right on top of you.
But Marines take very seriously Iraq's history of putting chemicals in artillery shells.
Yes!
This platoon of the 2nd Marine Division was tested on how long it took to put on protective clothing and gas masks. Their field commander scolded some of them for taking up to 20 seconds to get their masks on. Now, the Marines here tell me they want their men to be able to put on those masks in 9 seconds. Everyone here is preparing for a more aggressive response from Saddam Hussein. Peter?
Bill, as the weather changes and it appears to be getting better, do people there think the strategy is also changing?
Well, I think they believe that the air campaign will intensify as it did in the last 24 hours, and that maybe they'll take a few more chances on lower altitude bombing runs because they can see not only their targets a bit better, but also the anti-aircraft fire that's coming back up at them. So, yeah, I think they'll probably go in a little bit more aggressively in the next day or so.
And we keep seeing pieces of evidence, only pieces of evidence, that the ground forces continue to move forward. Does that, from your vantage point, reflect that the ground war may be coming?
I think from everyone we've talked to, this is in the military and those who observe the military from the outside, we've got a bit of time to wait yet, mainly because they don't believe the air campaign is completely finished, and they want to soften up frontline positions and also those Republican guards in the rear before they take any chances in abnormally high casualties by going across the line.
Okay, you've turned us in the direction we want to go. Thanks, Bill Redeker, because as we have heard in the many briefings by U.S. military officials, one thing the U.S. Air Force has been trying to do in this phase of the war is to so hammer and disorient the deeply entrenched Iraqi soldiers in Kuwait and southern Iraq that they will put up less of a fight if or when the ground war begins. The troops they're focusing on are the Republican Guards, as Bill Redeker referred, 150,000 of Iraq's finest. The U.S. military hopes that if the Guard is broken, it could lead to the collapse of the rest of the Iraqi army. ABC's Bob Zelnick.
Since leading the invasion of Kuwait, Iraq's Republican Guards have repositioned themselves behind the Iraq-Kuwaiti border. They have been placed there to react quickly to any Allied offensive. Despite almost 4 days of intensive bombing by B-52s and other aircraft, Pentagon sources say the results so far have been inconclusive. Fewer than 50 Republican Guard tanks have been destroyed. Supply lines from the north have been battered, but food and equipment continue to reach the Guards. Oil storage facilities have been attacked, but there's no apparent shortage of fuel. Major communications facilities have been hit, but sources here say Iraq laid hundreds of miles of underground cables in the months before the war, enabling them to keep sending information to the front. Sources also say there's little evidence that the Republican Guards have suffered large-scale desertions or defections, or that they are unable to function effectively as military units. But Pentagon officials say it's far too early to conclude the air campaign is not working. They say the Guards have been pinned down, preventing them from launching an offensive before the U.S. is ready. Officials also note that weather has limited the number of bombing runs against the Republican Guards.
There's been heavy cloud cover over southern Iraq and northern Kuwait, which is exactly the area that the Republican Guards has occupied. That's not to say they haven't been attacked, because they have.
Officials here insist that the air campaign against the Guards is in its early stage and will likely intensify in the days ahead. All agree that its success or failure will determine the kind of ground campaign that will be necessary to free Kuwait. Peter?
Bob, I sense, and I may be wrong, that the military briefers have become less enthusiastic over the last couple of days about how much damage they're doing to the Republican Guard.
Very true indeed, Peter, and that's because in the first couple of days they were talking about strategic targets in the Baghdad area and elsewhere, which were done in clear weather and where the damage assessments were easily obtained. In the last several days, they don't know exactly the damage that has been inflicted. They do know that bombing sorties in the Kuwait theater were cut back, and that many of the planes that conducted those raids returned with their bombs intact because of bad weather.
Okay, Bob Zelnick at the Pentagon. The very idea of having a Republican Guard tells us a lot about Iraq as it is governed by Saddam Hussein and the ruling Ba'ath Party. If Iraq had a king, it would be the Palace Guard, formed originally to protect the ruler. It is the spine of the Iraqi army, as you've heard. Here's ABC's John Martin.
Iraq has nearly 1 million troops in uniform, but the Republican Guards are the best equipped, best trained, and best paid soldiers of all. Most are literate, many are college graduates. All are believed to be devoted to Saddam Hussein.
One can equate the Republican Guard to the Waffen-SS, the SS units in the Second World War, which had a particular loyalty to the Führer.
They were once a smaller force composed only of soldiers from Hussein's home region. But faced with defeat by Iran in 1986, Iraq needed a large force to counterattack. Hussein decided to open up the Guard. In 1988, in 5 crucial battles, the Guards held off Iranian attacks and broke through enemy lines. Now they face a new test, and analysts disagree about whether they are up to it.
They've been trained in both the Soviet and the Western schools of thought, and they have started to train hard, something they did not do before the Iran-Iraq War. Never underestimate them.
They've been pampered. They're the Praetorian Guard. But to paint them as an organization that we should fear, I think that would be overrating them by quite a bit.
In fact, Traynor even speculates that faced with defeat, the highly nationalistic Republican Guards might be the one unit that would turn against Saddam Hussein. John Martin, ABC News, Washington.
One of the principal weapons being used against the Republican Guards is one of the most ferocious in the U.S. arsenal, the B-52 bomber. Here's ABC's Dennis Trout.
Even at the age of 35, the B-52 still looks menacing, and it is. Since Vietnam, it's been refitted with better radar, an improved targeting system, and electronic countermeasures to defend itself against attack. It's an all-weather plane capable of firing cruise missiles. But its reputation has been built on iron bombs, 20 tons of them, dropped from an altitude of 7 miles. Some penetrate the ground before exploding. Unlike most other bombers, the B-52 usually attacks in formation. 3 planes can carpet bomb an area 1.5 miles long and 1 mile wide, and troops below have no warning until the explosions start. Veterans say the psychological impact can be terrifying.
Once you've heard that sound, you never forget it. There's no way to hide. There's nowhere to run, and no matter how deep you dig the hole, it can still reach you out.
U.S. officials hope the B-52 strikes will demoralize those Iraqi soldiers who are not killed by them, and that may lessen Iraqi resistance if it comes to an attack on the ground. Dennis Trout, ABC News, the Pentagon.
Doesn't appear to be the case so far. We'll hear from our military analyst, Tony Cordesman, in just a moment.
Painful sore throat and no Chloraseptic spray? That's okay. Chloraseptic lozenges actually work like the spray to penetrate nerve endings and stop pain fast. Great tasting Chloraseptic lozenges. Fast relief when you're away from your spray.
Once a year, the automotive world holds its breath awaiting the announcement of its most prestigious award. From all the new models to choose from, only one car dominated the competition in rigorous tests to earn the 1991 Motor Trend Car of the Year award. The Chevrolet Caprice Classic. It's simply breathtaking.
When your child reaches college, the cost of a degree could exceed $110,000. And sooner or later, the truth dawns on you. You probably can't count on an athletic scholarship. Not even a partial one. At Merrill Lynch, we can give you some coaching. Ways you can improve your financial batting average. We call it College Builder. You'll call it a home run. Merrill Lynch, we're bullish on your financial future.
How fast does Dristan nasal spray start working to clear up congestion?
Already? That's fast. It's starting to work already.
Dristan nasal spray starts to work in seconds.
There's been a great deal of talk about the Republican Guard and the Iraqi army overall digging in Kuwait. They've had 5.5 months. The Pentagon military briefers continue to remind us. We have just managed to get our hands on some satellite photographs of their installations in Kuwait, done just before the war. And we're going to ask our military analyst, Tony Cordesman, who's in Washington tonight, Tony, to work these with us. We'll show you the pictures. You please tell us what you think you see.
Peter, if we look at the dark line there that splits the center, we see the border basically between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Now, what appear to be just faint lines moving in and out through Kuwait, that's the northern part above the main line that runs across your screen from right to left. There are new roads which have been built throughout the area. Iraq has gotten its forces ready to move by preparing roads which go in all directions so they can rapidly reinforce in any direction as the American forces penetrate.
What are those dark areas?
These dark areas are just natural features. This is hard areas in the sand, but now we can see one of those roads. It's a new road. We can see that there are other roads branching off from it. Once we penetrated through their forward defenses, we would begin to see them moving their armor, moving their mechanized units, if they could, in spite of our air power and artillery, down those lines to reinforce the forward defenses we'd penetrated.
Do these pictures give you a hint as to how effective their defenses are, how well they might be dug in?
Peter, this is a very revealing photo. I have to stress to people that the desert is the desert. These are forces that are dug in. They're trying to hide from our air power. And this is a commercial satellite, not intelligence. But let's just hold that image for a moment. What appear to be vague triangles there.
On the left, or the upper left of the picture?
In the upper left-hand corner, with dark lines in front of them. Those dark lines appear to be the complex of earthen mounds, trenches, minefields and razor wire they put in front of their infantry forces. Then if you look at that triangle, that web of lines that goes to the dark lines.
Still up on the upper left-hand side.
That's right.
There, right.
You can see that those are lines they could rapidly reinforce along. That cluster of spots is not something we can easily characterize, but traditionally that would be areas where they might have artillery positions, supply depots, where they would begin to forward stage some of their attack helicopters if they felt they could survive.
Tony, the point of this triangle, excuse me for interrupting, the point of this triangle is so that they can't easily be flanked by invading ground forces?
I think it's because, frankly, they just have not had time. We're looking at a very small area in Kuwait, and normally there would be more lines moving toward that triangle. If these photos are correct, and they date back to early January before the weather was spoiled, they do not have a fully cohesive defense. There are still some significant gaps in that defense. This is not a fully ready position by the standards of the Iran-Iraq War.
Okay, Tony Kordersman in Washington, thank you. This is why we have military analysts. We'll be back in just a moment.
Smells good.
Like a Carolina pine forest. That's Lysol Pine Action. I cleaned this morning. It disinfects and works fast. But the scent lasts for hours.
It's nice, but how'd they get a pine forest in there?
Lysol Pine Action. The clean of pine every time.
What would it take to get you to change from Advil or Tylenol? How about New Bear Plus? Bear Plus has Bear Aspirin for powerful pain relief, to bang back headaches, and Stomach Guard to help prevent stomach upset. So bang pain back with New Bear Plus, the wonder drug worth trying. It's tough on pain, gentle on your stomach.
I just discovered a new country. New Country Scent Lysol Spray.
And it smells like a fresh meadow.
Like a summer's day.
Like the country.
Discover a refreshing blend of country fragrances in a disinfectant spray. Discover new Country Scent Lysol Disinfectant Spray.
I just discovered a new country.
My grandfather loved the unknown. I want a sure thing. I drive a new kind of Oldsmobile, the all-new Bravada. Perfect for this jungle because it's got Smart Trap, a new anti-lock braking and all-wheel drive system that automatically sends power to the wheel that needs it. So I'm ready for the unexpected, whether I'm traveling across the river and into the trees.
This is the new generation.
Or just visiting your old man in the sea.
Bravada, engineered for the unexpected.
It's Red Lobster's 19 shrimp and steak special. Sizzling scampi, fried shrimp, plus a juicy steak. 19 shrimp and steak, just $9.99. Hurry to Red Lobster.
It's Red Lobster's new lunch menu.
Right now featuring our lunch shrimp combo.
Just $3.99.
Tempting scampi and fried shrimp.
Plus potato and salad for a limited time.
Just $3.99.
At Red Lobster for lunch.
It appears that Saddam Hussein has begun to make good on his threat to burn Kuwaiti oil facilities as some part of his defense strategy. A U.S. military spokesman in Saudi Arabia today says that Iraq blew up oil wells and storage tanks in 2 locations, in one just north of the Saudi border and another farther northeast closer to Kuwait City. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
An American Landsat satellite passing over Kuwait on January 6th took this picture, and it shows where the Iraqis have since started the fires, at a large oil field and at 2 major storage facilities on the Gulf Coast. This is the kind of threat Saddam Hussein first made in September. And some military analysts say that against the high-tech American air assault, Iraq may be able to unleash giant clouds of soot, a crude but potentially useful defense.
Our reconnaissance satellites might not be able to see through these clouds, so we wouldn't detect Iraqi troop movements. And many of these smart weapons that we're launching simply wouldn't be able to find their targets once they got in the general area because of this thick smoke.
This is the first time in the history of the world that oil facilities have been used either as an offensive instrument or a defensive instrument.
The U.S. military command, which announced the Iraqi sabotage this morning, says American forces could manage even if hundreds of fires begin.
Well, it certainly could have an effect. If it did have an effect,
That's what war is. You know, he tries something, you try something. We would look for another way to do the job. We're confident we can do that.
But putting oil fires out anywhere can be complicated even in peacetime. Some oil refineries and tanks can burn themselves out in a few days, but Kuwait could be like these wells in Libya. After saboteurs set them off in 1965, they burned for months. The sabotage reported so far is by no means enough to cause the global air pollution that some scientists have feared. But if the Iraqis detonate more wells, it could make the war for the Allies run longer and be more difficult. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
The news that Kuwaiti oil installations are burning sent oil prices higher today, up nearly $3 a barrel to more than $24 a barrel. According to the Federal Reserve Board Chairman Alan Greenspan, that price will not affect the overall economy one way or the other. Mr. Greenspan spoke to Congress today about the war's overall potential impact. Here's ABC's Stephen Ogg.
The Federal Reserve Chairman says government spending to buy new American-made equipment for the war is going to increase economic growth. But he also told the House Budget Committee that it was the crisis preceding the war that put the economy into recession in the first place, partly because higher oil prices took so great a share of income that Americans had less to spend on other goods and services, and partly because of the uncertainties.
Faced with such uncertainty, producers and consumers tend to withdraw from their normal activities while they wait for clearer signals of economic developments.
Greenspan said the worst of the downturn may have passed. Greenspan also said the war is costing the government less than $1 billion a day. But Congress is about to look for more ways to finance the war. Under questioning, Greenspan suggested one way he felt would be the wrong way: raising taxes. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials lost nearly 26 points, and they closed at 2603, and the trading was moderate. When our extended edition of World News Tonight continues in just a few moments, the Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations on civilian casualties in Iraq and Israel, the emotional stress of war for Americans on the home front, and the unprecedented security for the Super Bowl this Sunday. We'll be right back.
Tonight on Nightline with Ted Koppel. Renewed Scud attacks on Israel. Will retaliation be far behind? The latest from the Gulf, tonight.
Can't you do anything right?
When your world seems to be falling apart, no matter what it is, Crisis Call is there to listen and help work out your problems.
Hi, I'm Davis Nolan. When winter weather sets in on the Nashville area, turn to Channel 2 Snow Patrol for school closing information. Starting in the early morning at 5:30, we'll bring you updated announcements of school closings and canceled events. We're on patrol for winter storms, so watch Channel 2's Snow Patrol.
Channel 2 Snow Patrol is brought to you in part by your Tennessee, Kentucky gold medal Chevrolet dealers, Arby's, and Weight Watchers.
1, 2, 3,
Tune in, turn on, then drop everything for the hits, highs,
let's go, baby,
and heroes only pro football can provide.
Deion Sanders, touchdown!
Don't miss NFL Films' 5-time Emmy Award-winning Road to the Super Bowl.
Catch all the great moments Saturday at 9, only on Channel 2. You're watching WKRM-TV, Channel 2.
From ABC, our special one-hour edition of World News Tonight with Peter Jennings continues.
Much of what we learn about the war in the Gulf comes from briefings by officials representing the Western Alliance. It has been very, very difficult to talk to the Iraqis. A little while ago, however, we did speak with Abdul Amir al-Ambari, the Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations. He told us he was in daily contact with his government, and so we began by asking him if he could tell us about the extent of casualties in his country so far.
No, as a matter of fact, today I presented a memo to the Secretary General asking him to circulate it to the members of the Security Council concerning the number of civilian casualties, which is about 250 wounded and dead in various cities and various towns of Iraq.
How are you able to assess that in a country which is being so extensively attacked all the time?
Well, we have our government offices, our communication system inside the country, and everything is reported minute by minute.
The military briefers at the Pentagon say that your communications are being rapidly degraded, that it's very difficult to communicate from one part of the country to the other. True?
Well, with all due respect to our spokesman in the Pentagon, but they have so many things which tend to be wrong.
Such as?
Well, as you know, on the first day they said that they destroyed all the Iraqi air forces, which tend to be not true. And they said so many other claims about the Republican Army in the southern part of Iraq, which is, again, is still viable and very in a powerful position. And I believe now everyone is recognizing that they made a lot of exaggeration in the past.
What does Iraq hope to accomplish by blindly launching a missile against an Israeli city?
Well, you know, all the wars which Israel has fought so far have been outside Israeli territory. Either in Egypt or in Lebanon or in Syria or in Jordan. I believe it's important for the Israelis to know the consequences and the pain and suffering of war, so that eventually they might come to realize that peace in their interest as well, and give the Palestinians their legitimate rights and the right of self-determination.
But is it the policy of your government to make civilians targets rather than just military targets?
Well, you know, the Americans have not been very generous with our civilians. They have been bombarding, carpet bombarding all cities and towns, killing children, ladies, and elderlies, and even sick people in hospitals.
If the United States is carpet bombing Iraqi cities, sir, how is it you only have, by your recommendation to the Security Council, 250 casualties?
Well, as you know, the American military authorities have their own priorities. I believe gradually they are becoming more and more aggressive in the sense of lack of discrimination between civilian and non-civilian.
Are you surprised to see a captured airman say on Iraqi television that he thinks that the actions of his government against the, quote, peace-loving Iraqi people is a mistake? Are you surprised to hear him say that?
No, I'm not surprised. Usually every soldier or every officer, once he's in the hands of so-called his enemies, I believe he will try to save his life and answer anything that might please the interrogator.
So, in other words, you're pretty convinced that he's trying to please the interrogator, not necessarily telling the truth?
Well, I cannot tell that. I'm not a psychologist, and it's for him to decide.
The Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations, who said that captured Allied airmen were being treated according to the Geneva Conventions. The White House, as you know, insists vehemently that they are not. Some of the views expressed by the Iraqi ambassador are widely held in the Islamic world, even in countries where the government has condemned the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. Here's ABC's Pierre Salinger.
For 8 years, Iran was at war with Iraq. Now, thousands of Iranians march through the streets of Tehran, condemning the United States for attacking Iraq and calling for immediate withdrawal. In Tunisia, more than 1,000 young men and women sign up to go and fight for Saddam Hussein and donate their blood to the Iraqi cause. They hate the way the Western media are covering the war.
All the media are lying about Arabs. We are not terrorists, but we will become terrorists if we have to.
In next-door Algeria, a country with rising Islamic fundamentalism, 400,000 people march through the streets in support of Saddam Hussein. The same massive demonstrations take place in Libya, where 1 million people turn out, and in Yemen, on the frontier of Saudi Arabia, where 100,000 shout hate for the United States. These people demonstrating in the streets are much more supportive of Saddam Hussein than their governments have been. And not all the pro-Saddam movements are in the Middle East. 500,000 people march in the streets of Bangladesh, ransacking the American club and a Saudi school. There are also thousands of Muslims in the streets of Pakistan and India. And here in London, Muslims have burned U.S. flags outside their mosques, and their leaders have called for withdrawal of non-Muslim forces facing Saddam. In Lyon, French police seized 800 video and audio tapes of a song called Go For It, Saddam. They were obviously concerned that a song glorifying the Iraqi leader might influence the almost 3 million Muslims living in France. Pierre Salinger, ABC News, London.
In a moment, Mr. Gorbachev's frank talk about what's going on in the Baltics. Some psychologists on the subject of war stress and why the fans won't be allowed to take their portable radios to the Super Bowl.
Theragram wants to know. Changed my life.
Not much. With Theragram M multivitamins with minerals, fine-tuned for the way you live.
Call me irresponsible.
Just because the other guy is on the road doesn't mean his mind is. So the superb traction of the Subaru Legacy with four-wheel drive and anti-lock brakes can be quite a comfort. Since the next guy is capable of almost anything, shouldn't the same be true of your next car?
Hurry in for double discount savings at your local Subaru dealer today.
Dad, please, it's perfect for my new apartment. Look, Panasonic 20-inch remote control color TV. It's on sale.
But your mother and I don't own a set this good.
Well, come over, watch it anytime. Just make sure you call first.
I've had it up to here with antacid taste.
Then get great flavor up to here with extra strength Maalox Plus Cherry Cream. Up to here with mint cream. Up to here with lemon Swiss cream.
Maalox, you're the best.
It's the strongest, best tasting antacid.
Mikhail Gorbachev, who said last week he did not order the shootings by Soviet troops in Lithuania, now says he didn't order the shootings in Latvia either. The violence used against the Baltic republics has led many of Mr. Gorbachev's supporters to turn against him, including one of his former top economics advisors, who in an article today accuses him of capitulating to hardliners in the Soviet military. Mr. Gorbachev called the foreign press in today to have a go at his critics. ABC's Jim Laurie is in Moscow.
Trying to prove he still has some progressive backers left, Gorbachev brought with him Alexander Yakovlev and Evgeny Primakov, advisors reported to have resigned. But it was not the open Gorbachev of old. He took no questions. He merely read a statement, what he called a frank talk about the Baltic crisis. He ordered a thorough investigation of the bloodshed in Lithuania and Latvia, and he denied reports he planned to impose direct rule in those republics.
The events in Vilnius and Riga in no way constitute an expression of a desire of presidential rule, and I resolutely reject any such speculation.
He vowed, on the one hand, to end chaos in the Baltics, but on the other, to restrain military units who he tried to suggest were not following Moscow's orders.
No arbitrary actions by the army are allowed. The army should act only according to orders and discipline.
But so should the Baltics. While expressing his condolences to the victims' families, he warned again the Baltic states must obey the law according to Moscow. By summoning the international media, Gorbachev clearly hoped to dampen world condemnation of his handling of the Baltics. But to many here, he succeeded only in raising more questions about his ability to control the military. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
In a clear reference to Western criticism today, Mr. Gorbachev said that internal policy must be decided by the Soviet people and no one else. He spoke shortly after the European community effectively froze more than $1 billion worth of technical and economic aid to Moscow because of the Soviets' violent military behavior in the Baltic republics. The United States also had a blunt warning for Moscow today. Here's ABC's David Ensor.
By meeting with senior officials of the three Baltic governments, Secretary of State Baker was sending a message to Moscow about recent progress between the superpowers.
The events of the last 10 days to 2 weeks or so, I'm afraid to say, could have the effect of putting that progress in jeopardy.
Administration officials say because of the bloodshed in Vilnius and Riga, a real reassessment of relations with Moscow is underway.
Moscow must die!
The Bush-Gorbachev summit, set for next month, is up in the air, and there is also discussion of sending a U.S. delegation to visit the Baltic capitals. A host of credits, commercial deals, and the waiver of trade restrictions against the Soviet Union are also under review. And Congress is now in no mood to approve agreements with the Soviets.
If the principle of fighting aggression is honest and true, as we have said it is in the Middle East, it is certainly honest and true in the Baltic republics.
Some analysts say the Gulf crisis has so distracted the administration that it has been slow to respond to danger signals from the Soviet Union.
Mr. Bush and other Western leaders have put much too much faith in Mr. Gorbachev, that he's somebody they cannot rely on, that he's becoming increasingly suspect and disliked and now hated.
Some are even asking how wise it was to strip U.S. troops out of Europe for the Gulf War,
when the Soviet military may be reverting to its old ways. But most analysts say if there is a domestic crackdown, Moscow will be far too busy to bother anyone else. David Ensor, ABC News, the State Department.
When we come back, the war's pressure on the home front.
It's not going to happen to me.
Not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Not going to happen to me.
I was really shocked when I found out I was infected. I didn't think anything like this could ever happen to me.
Only certain
people get it.
I'm a good example that you can get AIDS from heterosexual sex.
Who cares?
I'm trying to make the best of the time that I have left, because realistically, I really don't know how much time that is.
You could be putting yourself at risk. Call 1-800-342-AIDS.
Wednesday on Equal Justice.
Just think of him as an empty suit.
A decision on life.
I could have a death sentence by the end of the week.
A decision of the heart.
I have not been able to stop thinking about you.
You've had 6 weeks to get a performance out of your client.
Let me be nice to you.
That is just what can't happen in the courtroom.
Decisions.
I'm asking that this defendant be put to death.
Decisions.
This is probably the biggest mistake of my life.
Decisions.
I don't want him to die. Please don't kill him.
An all-new Equal Justice, Wednesday.
Hi, Jonathan and I want to tell you about our new show, Davis Rules.
Yeah, it's about this overweight woman. Huge woman.
No, that's Roseanne. Jonathan here plays my dad.
30 years in the Marine Corps, retired. A bunch of people on an island, and they're trying to get this telephone to work.
Gilligan's Island. We love you. Dear old dad.
There's a lot of that in the Corps.
Yeah.
You never know what'll happen on Davis Rules special preview Sunday after the Super Bowl.
Since the war in the Middle East began 6 days ago, psychologists and psychiatrists have been warning about the enormous stress of war. It is most obvious in the devastating shell shock of soldiers in the field. It can also have an effect on many people at home. Here's ABC's Ken Kashiwahara.
This is a very new war. It's very terrifying for everybody.
Across the country, hospitals and churches have organized support groups for people suffering from emotional stress. Psychologists say the war has produced anxiety and anger.
You have children? Yes. Are you projecting any of that anger towards your family and your children? Yes, and fellow workers.
The fears being expressed are both real and imagined. The uncertainty of losing jobs, worries about the war coming to American neighborhoods.
I've never experienced fear to the intensity that I had, to the point that I didn't want to leave my house. Fear of terrorism, that was very real to me.
With Israel under attack, Jewish community centers have organized support groups too, but the fears go beyond concerns about Israel. A single mother worries about her only son being drafted. Others believe war against Saddam Hussein is necessary.
I'm very much against the war. I have everything to lose by it. I can't bear to hear an airplane go by. I think of Baghdad. I'm just there, it feels like.
He's not going to be satisfied just taking away a little country there. He would go further and further and further.
Psychologists say children are the most vulnerable to the emotional trauma of war. Such images as Israeli children putting on gas masks, they say, have produced nightmares and unfounded fears.
We've had kids come here and say, I'm afraid I won't get back from school in time before the bomb drops, or when I leave for school in the morning, I may not get home in time to see Mom and Dad.
The Los Angeles Teen Hotline was set up for teenagers to talk to other teenagers about drugs, suicide, pregnancy. Now they talk about war.
How are you feeling about the war?
You're right.
It's really scary, isn't it? You could feel the pain in their voice, and I felt really badly. And I felt like I wanted to say, oh, everything's going to be okay, but I couldn't.
As the war escalates, psychologists believe the level of stress will escalate too. They are advising children and adults to talk about their feelings, to comfort each other, to understand that they are not alone. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, Los Angeles.
A virtual army of security agents has descended on Tampa for the Super Bowl this Sunday. Security has never been so tight, and ABC's Mark Potter is there.
At a Tampa gun range, an FBI SWAT team practices for an Iraqi terrorist attack it hopes will never occur.
5 threats, straight ahead.
The agents are part of a 700-member federal and local police team assembled in Tampa. 75,000 people are expected to attend the Super Bowl, and 700 million will see it on television in 60 countries. Authorities say that makes the game an obvious target for terrorism.
Cease fire!
The FBI and local police say they have found no evidence yet of any terrorist plots against the Super Bowl, but they continue to watch closely and to tighten up security at the stadium.
We're on alert on a 24-hour basis to deal with anything that might come to our attention.
All vehicles entering the stadium are being checked, even police cars. Fans will be searched with metal detectors, and they are prohibited from bringing in electronic devices such as radios, TVs, and cameras. Bomb dogs are already checking the stands. Officials are putting up extra fences and concrete barricades, and a custom service Black Hawk helicopter is patrolling the sky.
Quite frankly, we've done everything possible. We're going to extreme measures to make sure that the stadium and the surrounding area is safe.
In past years, Super Bowl security dealt primarily with fistfights, pickpockets, and gate crashers. This year, officials are worried about the potential for something much worse. Mark Potter, ABC News, Tampa.
Today was Media Day for the Super Bowl press, always something of a carnival. Picture 2,200 people, some but not all reporters, realizing this is their last chance to talk to the players before the game. After today, the players practice and the reporters watch. As ABC's Dick Schaap reports, much of the conversation today was about the war.
It isn't always easy here in Tampa to remember that Super Bowl 25 isn't the most important thing that's happening in the world. But today, as the media made its way through metal detectors and descended upon the New York Giants and the Buffalo Bills, the war in the Gulf inevitably descended upon the game in Tampa Stadium.
Pepper, how are you separating the emotions of having a cousin over in the war as opposed to the Super Bowl this week?
Giant Pepper Johnson's cousin is a foot soldier in the Middle East. Buffalo's Carlton Bailey's father, a Vietnam veteran, was called up as an Army reservist.
I was going to say, he's missing the biggest event of his life.
He's missing the biggest event of his life, but, you know, I'm going to videotape it and everything.
All over the stadium, football players fielded questions about combat.
Our hearts are out to those men and women that are fighting for us over there.
I pray for the children who are left over here with their parents gone, the mothers and fathers with their children gone.
Of course, not every interview focused on the Persian Gulf.
You ask questions about the war as it pertains to the athletes, how it affects them. But then you also go on to ask Sean Landeta, well, will the wind make a difference in how you kick?
A Pulitzer Prize-winning sports writer acknowledged the obvious, that the war diminished the game.
You have to wonder if the readers are going to be as compelled to read your stories as they would be in another year.
But another writer resented the war's impact on the game.
I don't want the real world interfering with my little world. I mean, there's enough real world out there.
The real world, however, will continue to hover above the game. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Tampa.
We'll have our final report this evening in just a moment.
Colon cancer is a very serious and common form of cancer. I had it myself a few years ago. Luckily, a routine test enabled my doctor to detect and treat it at an early stage when the rate of cure is very high. Ask your doctor about testing for colon cancer, especially if you're over 40. Could save your life. For more information, including how you may be able to reduce your risk of colon cancer with a healthy diet, write the Will Rogers Institute, White Plains, New York.
Sam's home from college and up to her old tricks.
I'll use the old escape route.
Who's the boss? And on a special night for Family Matters, the class pairs off into married couples.
Give my wife some air.
A special Family Matters. And
You're beginning to sound like Mom.
Hold it. If I found that really insulting, would it bother you?
Becky's moving out on Roseanne. Then, is Hayden adopting a dog?
$15, and that includes a shot.
Well, that wouldn't be a shot of adrenaline, would it?
Coach, Tuesday.
Thursday, Greenhorn.
New Jack.
Hanging out.
In effect.
In your face.
Toe-to-toe.
Kicking back.
Chilling out.
Psyched.
amped.
The words are out on Gabriel's Fire. Tremendous, compelling, gritty, intriguing, stylish, powerful, strong. Everyone's talking about James Earl Jones. Thursday, Gabriel's Fire.
Stop! You're killing me.
Chill, you're smoking me.
Finally tonight, The War on the Small Screen, Part 2. Last night, Jeff Greenfield reported on some of the problems brought on by live television coverage of the war, some of which we've helped contribute to. Tonight, a reminder, if one is needed, that we're seeing very little of what is actually happening in the war. Black and white military pictures so far of bombs hitting buildings, none which so far show them missing, or streaks of light in the sky which are a very brief hint that missiles are chasing other missiles. At times, it has seemed like a giant video game, which it definitely is not. Once again, here's Jeff Greenfield.
This tape is
at this morning's briefing in Riyadh, Rear Admiral Konrad Lautenbacher wanted to make a point about the pictures he was about to show.
This is not a video game.
The idea that these pictures of the air war look like a video game is almost unavoidable. It is sometimes hard to tell the real thing from an arcade simulation. It's also an idea that understandably rankles the military.
Is there any sort of danger that you don't have any sense of the horrors of war here, that it is all just a game?
You didn't see me treating it like a game, and you didn't see me laughing and joking about it going on. There's human lives being lost when that happens.
Perhaps it's because of what is not yet being seen in this war, the horrible agony of ground conflict, burned into our memories from Vietnam. With no ground wars yet, the closest thing to combat footage has been the intercepts of Scud missiles in the skies of Saudi Arabia, the scrambling of reporters for gas masks, burning buildings in Baghdad, the damage and casualties in Tel Aviv. Surprisingly, there has been no footage from Iraq of civilian casualties, the sorts of pictures Americans saw from North Vietnam 20 years ago. Instead, there are only pictures of a smiling Saddam Hussein or a smoking missile, perhaps because the high-tech weapons have hit their targets so precisely, as one eyewitness who was in Baghdad recalls.
Missile away!
And they just went right across the horizon, and both of them dove one after the other directly into the Dora refinery. It's a huge explosion.
Nor have we seen any images at all from the attacks on Iraqi forces in southern Iraq or occupied Kuwait. Instead, the heavily controlled footage of American might has at times looked more like haunting photographic essays than of images of war. Comparing real-life warfare with a video game is, of course, foolishness, but it is perhaps inevitable given this astonishing fact. After 6 days of relentless warfare, the world has yet to see a single image of a single dead soldier. Jeff Greenfield, ABC News, New York.
Though today we did see some wounded and, as it turned out, dead civilians. An Iraqi Scud missile got through the Patriot missile defense in Tel Aviv and hit an apartment building. At least 3 people died of heart attacks, it turns out, and more than 60 people were injured. Sources at the Pentagon tell ABC's Bob Zelnick they believe it was not the new Patriot missiles with their American crews that were in action in and around Tel Aviv today. It was an older Patriot missile battery that the Israelis have been training on. We do not know whether the Israelis or the Americans were at the controls. But that is our report on World News tonight. We'll keep you up to date with reports every hour on the hour and live coverage of any major development. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
This is Channel 2 News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Cindy Benson. Making news tonight, the fighting intensified today in the Persian Gulf. Saddam Hussein's forces unleashed a series of Scud missile attacks, sounding air raid warnings from Saudi Arabia to Israel. At least 1 missile struck in Tel Aviv, injuring dozens. At least 3 people are dead, apparently of heart attacks. Here at home, more Tennessee Guard members are preparing for war tonight. A unit from Smyrna was called into active duty today. The part-time soldiers reported to their armory this morning. Channel 2's Julie Kurtz reports live now from Smyrna. Julie?
Cindy, this Smyrna group is the 17th Tennessee National Guard unit to be called to action during the Persian Gulf crisis. This unit's mission will be to keep track of troop strength and also casualty figures. Today's call-up came as somewhat of surprise to the members here. It's not on a priority list.
Are we taking these now?
Yes, ma'am. Just don't lose them.
Rosemarie Weatherford was issued her military ID today.
That's fine.
A true sign that she is no longer a part-time soldier. It's time for active duty for Weatherford and the rest of this Smyrna Army Guard unit.
I don't think anybody is ever prepared for war, ever. You know, probably not even the poor people over there that have to live it.
The 568th Personnel Service Company was told just last week they wouldn't be called to go anytime soon. But nothing is certain in the war, and now they have 3 days to get ready.
Beforehand, we were thinking that it might be a possibility, and now it's absolutely a possibility, that there's no possibility to it, that there is a war going on. And so I'm sure everybody is more concerned because of that.
For Harvey